our site. You can visit thinkmonsters.com, and we'll have something on the main page there as soon as the webinar has been posted. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll be posting, regular updates. A lot of times we'll have content just like this that helps give you tips, but we'll also be posting about future webinars in this series. So Shad, I think you messaged me that we have a few questions that came in.
Yeah, I've been sort of collecting questions and comments as we go. And, some of these are actually some pretty good questions we have here to answer. Let's try to get to a few of them, not all of them, just because you don't want to run on too long. It's all about brevity with these things.
And it's Friday.
And it's Friday afternoon, so everybody's, I'm sure, itching to get moving. But one of our first questions, and I think you can probably speak to this pretty well here, Patrick, is, what are some of the good design practices when you're sort of designing the look of your blog, your business blog?
That's a good question. I would probably say that one of the most important things to consider. We're big believers in simplicity, right? Readers like things that are simple, clean interfaces. So if you're designing a blog or if you're building a blog, I would say always keep it as straightforward as possible. Don't clutter up the page. A lot of times what you'll see on consultant sites or bigger sites that aren't really business focused. They might be business focused, but they start doing advertising on the blog and they clutter up with a bunch of ads. Where I don't really feel that has a great place in a corporate or a business setting. Primarily because people don't care about that. They wanna read your content, and so I think it's good to focus on that. The other thing is when you're writing your posts on the main page of the blog, always put in the snippets, a short paragraph to start, and let people click to go into the full blog entry. This allows people to scan the page and keeps it simple enough that people can go on there, see which blog entries that they want to read, and gives them the control over, instead of making them scroll all the way down the page. I've seen some blogs that are so long and you have to scroll forever to see the next blog entry. So things to consider.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to go, we kind of breezed over that a little bit in content, but, you definitely don't want your post to be too long. And, using the method you're talking about, it really relies more on the headlines and images, which I think are the biggest grabbers when you're putting together your blog. But I also favor, sort of the straightforward look at blogs. From going through, for this webinar, we went through, like 100 blogs. And looking at the ones I liked the best, they were generally the ones that were simplistic. The most recent posts, here are all the old posts, just kind of getting to the point. I remember General Motors has a Fastline blog, which is a pretty good blog, about some of the innovations they're doing. But it's just you go to the homepage and there's so much on there. It's the stuff with, images and comments and video, and it's great to have all that stuff on your blog. Just don't let it overwhelm people. Don't let them come to the site and be like, ugh, and then just turn away and go somewhere else. Obviously, that works against your purpose.
Yeah.
Moving on, though, another question we had. That last question, by the way, was from Amy. This one is from Suzanne, another attendee. She asked about, and I think we touched on this a little bit, but I'm glad she brings it up because I'm planning on blogging on this on Monsters blog next week, actually, because it's a good topic. She asked about blogs driven by customer, user, reader content solely. And these do exist. There's a few of them. The one that springs to mind right off the bat is Starbucks has a blog called My Starbucks Idea. It's entirely people's comments, their suggestions for how Starbucks could be better. And that's the whole blog. It's all posted by users and readers. Flickr is another one. They do stuff where they profile their customers and how they're using Flickr. And, that's the blog. PlayStation has another one where people just submit their ideas to make PlayStation better. And, if you have that audience, if you've built up the number of people in those communities, these things are a great thing to do. They turn up well in search engines. You get people involved. You actually let people sort of run the show, which is what's which is great. Let your customers, give them a forum, let them talk, get them involved in your brand. And it's a great way to do things. Again, I got to say, you got to build that base first, which is done over time. So you can't generally do that immediately. But once your business blog, sort of builds up an audience, you can definitely have an offshoot where you do something with it.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about that statistic that we read recently, which is you have to hit a certain threshold before you have people who are regularly posting enough to add value to your community, whether it's the blog or your social media outlets. And I believe the number was around 1,000. So to get to 1,000, then you have enough people who are regularly posting or commenting or whatever in your community that makes it engaging enough. And because every person isn't going to comment every day on every post that you make or everything that you write. So it's important to have that base or that foundation. So that's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people want the sort of magic trick that makes your blog popular overnight. You got comments going, content posted all the time. Not really realistic. It's going to take a while to build up that leadership. It's going to take a while. If you go a couple months without people commenting, don't get discouraged. I mean, it takes some time to develop that, and it takes some time to develop that sort of leadership.
That's good.
Another question we have, and I think you could probably address this pretty well, Patrick, is Scott. He wanted to know where you should put your blog, where your blog should live. Should it live on the company's website? Should it be something totally separate from that? Should it be something like WordPress or Tumblr, one of those sites? What's the best practice for that?
Well, I basically would say it's dependent on your company and the resources you have. If you have the ability to have it in-house, I would suggest it. Ideally, you want to have your blog sit on your site somewhere, and you want to have your blog be unique. We talked about like the URL and everything. It's nice to have that, and sometimes with the default easy button solution that a lot of those sites have, like WordPress has it, Tumblr, Blogger, whatever. Those you're kind of at the mercy of using the URL that they provide to you, and I believe this goes for a lot of different marketing initiatives. But I'm a big believer in having everything be an extension of your brand. And so, instead of having a Yahoo email address, you have, a company website email address. And the same thing goes for the blog. I feel like the blog should do the same thing. It should be an extension of your brand. And so if you have thinkmonsters.com/blog or whatever it is, that's the ideal. And when you have a company website or you have a corporate website, you should make it really easily accessible from the site itself. Having it maybe in the navigation, also having it somewhere on the page, whether it's on the front page or internal pages, somewhere that's easily accessible for people to be able to read the blog entries. Because, like Shad said earlier, your blog entries are like the news, the magazine for your company. Those are the things that become more dynamic and more engaging. That content you're putting out there. Your corporate website copy isn't necessarily always like that, but your blog content is. So keeping it in front of people all the time is really important.
Yeah, I agree completely. You got to have an easy. I think the most important thing is you got to have an easy way for people to get to it directly from your website. Put it up top there, make it easy for them to find. As I talked about entrance ways, you got to make it easy for people to get there. And then another kind of point with that is, your blog can have its own brand, and function in its own way, its own theme, as we talked about earlier, but don't let your company get lost in there.
Mm-hmm.
You want people to know it's from you, by you. You're the one providing this valuable information.
That's a good point.
You don't want that to get lost.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So we're about at our time threshold, so I'm going to kind of stop the questions there. I did want to say something about, we got a number of comments related to Mr. Stallone. So, and a lot of them were saying, there were a couple that they wanted more clips, where's Tango and Cash? One of them just said over the top, the Expendables, Demolition Man. few of the names mentioned. And, why we tried to keep we wanted the entertainment value in there, but we also didn't want to overwhelm the whole thing with Stallone.
Yeah.
We got to give you some valuable information in there, too.
Those are all
just sort of a supporting method.
Those are all good movies, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got classics galore. But you never know. There could be a business blog sequel with more Stallone clips. We're not ruling that out.
Yeah, so speaking of great movies that are out there, we'll talk a little bit about the continuation of the series with part 2. We're giving a little teaser here as to who's going to be the featured guest, but we're going to be talking about Facebook. So, stay tuned for the next installment. In that one, we're going to be talking about how to pump up your presence on the most successful social network. And this is a little teaser, but we'll be talking about setting up a page, info to include that you would include in your Facebook page, what to post, when to post, and then promoting your page and getting likes.
And that's, part 2 is probably the most important one in the series with how businesses are focusing on so much on Facebook these days. And I don't know who this, big action star is there. I can't tell, but I think it's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, so just so you know, it's not over, and stay tuned. We'll let everybody know who was on the webinar today, when the next webinar is scheduled for. But we'll leave you with this little snippet from our friend Stallone.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over!
So, thanks everybody. Have a great day and have a good weekend.